Here we go, holy friends. Okay, so today's topic, as advertised, is individuality. Individuality. What's in a name? Well, I just gave away the answer. Let's go into it. Let's understand that when we talk about names in Judaism, we have to. There's a bunch of principles that we need, right? And that is, we want to see first and foremost, where do we find names in Judaism? Where do we find names in the Torah? So we can point to when there's an idea that Adam named all of the animals. That is one. But I want to focus a little bit later. We'll get back to that. I want to focus a little bit later by Avraham. I'm talking about Jewish names in particular. Avraham, we know, was told by Hashem. Hashem said, "Go out and look into the stars. Count the stars if you can. So too will be your children." So we see already, right then and there, that Jews are compared to stars, right? Which is awesome. Hello. But another source in Tehillim and Psalms says, "Monem mispar lakochavim luchulam shemot yikra." Count the number of the stars, so too will be your children. Sorry, that's a different quote. Monem mispar lakochavim, count the stars, count the number of the stars. Likulam shemot yikra. To each God gave a name. To each God gave a name. So we see that there's a connection here between Jews, Abraham's kids, and stars and names, right? So we see the connection between the concept of stars and the concept of names. And so the commentaries explain that because there's an astronomical system, and each star does something that brings something else to the world, that without that star, the world would be a completely different place. And so the idea is that this is the concept of names as well. Think about it. You give a name only when you give a name to something that you want to describe independence to, right? So for example, if you had somebody working in a slaughterhouse, they're probably not naming all those animals every single day. However, if they go home to a dog and they have a dog in their house, so that dog probably does have a name. What's the difference? That they give a certain value, a certain name, a certain individuality, certain qualities, they have a relationship. All of that stuff is what a name connotes, right? What a name connotates. And so this is the idea of what a name is all about. It's the concept of individuality, of uniqueness, of value, of character. This is all the concept of names. And so the idea is that Hashem, God, is saying to Avraham, count the stars, so too will be your kids, meaning to say that with each and every one of these kids, each and every one of these Jews, there's something, the world would be a different place without each one. Each one is infinitely valuable, okay? And similarly, we find the idea in the beginning of the book of Numbers, right? Bamidbar, which literally translates to mean in the desert, yet in English they call it Numbers. Why? Because the beginning of that book starts off with a counting of the Jewish people. And there too, the Jewish people are told to count up the Jewish people, or Moshe says to count up, Moshe or Hashem, I forget, says count up the Jews in accordance with the families, etc. Bimispar shemot, in accordance with the names. So again, we see that the Torah is giving names a value. So let's understand that according to Judaism, names is not happenstance. It did not come up on its own. It wasn't that people were just kind of alive and then they decided, oh, you know what? It would be much better and more practical and easier to deal with life and with people and society and community if each person had a name, right? After all, if I was at a rock concert, no one had names. How would I get somebody's attention? I'd be like, hey, you, and then 20 people would turn around. And then I'd have to, say, oh, no, not you, you, You know what I mean? And so that would be very not practical. And so therefore people came up with names. No, that's not what we're saying in Judaism happened. What we're saying in Judaism has happened is that names was something that the Torah talks about, because the Torah only speaks about that which is of essence, that there's something real there. There's something essential there. And so that means to say that names isn't just something that came about happenstance wise, but actually it's something that has its root, and we see it has its root in spirituality, has its root in truth, has its root in essence. And so we see also that this is how the world is created, also by speech, by, so to speak, the names of things. Right? We see that beginning of the Torah, it says the first verse of the Torah says, "Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz." In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, that's the simple translation. It's true and it's good. But if you look a bit closer, you see that it says, "Bereshit bara Elokim." In the beginning, God created et. How do you translate et in Hebrew into English? The answer is you don't. There's no real English translation, but there's nothing like that's extraneous in the Torah. The Torah is given by an infinite being, therefore there's nothing extraneous. So what does et mean? So one idea of et, especially that first et is telling you aleph to taf, that in the beginning God created aleph to taf. He created the Hebrew language from A to Z, from aleph to taf, and the first letter and the last letter, right? So it's from aleph to taf, Hashem created the Hebrew language, and then God uses the Hebrew language in order to create the shamayim and the aretz, the heavens and the earth. And so what that means is that at the root of anything is the Hebrew language, the speech that God spoke in order to create that thing, right? So for example, how do you say to speak in Hebrew is lidaber? How do you say a thing in Hebrew? Davar. It's the same in Hebrew. Those are the same letters, or the same root letters. What does that teach you? It teaches you that God's speech is at the root of the thing, and the thing is an expression of the speech. So there's something very real and essential about the names, and this is one reason why it's important in particular for a Jew to have a Jewish name, right? Because it gets to the essence of the person and the role, the unique role they are here to play, right? And so this is also the story of the word for name in Hebrew is shem, means name. Related to the Hebrew word sham, again, the same letters as the word shem, just different vowels, right? And so sham in Hebrew means there, because in the name of the thing is incorporated the there of the thing, meaning the destination of the thing, the purpose of the thing, what the thing is really here for, what it's really all about. All that is encapsulated in the name. So the name, wrapped up in the name, is the role, the character, so to speak, that we are here to play. That which we're here to fix and uplift and perfect and rectify here in this world is incorporated and encapsulated in our name. That's why, according to the Talmud, interestingly enough, it says that when a parent names a child, they have 1/60th of prophecy. There is a flavor. 1/60th in the Talmud always means like a flavor of the thing. There is a flavor of prophecy when a parent names a child, right? Why? Because they're tapping into the future. They're tapping into what this person is supposed to be at their essence, even though that's beyond perhaps their capacity to know, but yet they are, in most cases, gifted with it. Now, there are certain circumstances, people change their name, this, et cetera, another conversation for another time. But in general, this is the situation that we are, that we have, this is the tradition that we have received in Judaism, because this gets to what we're really about. And so that takes me to another source that I'd like to share with you from one of the great Hasidic masters, the Sfat Emet. The Sfat Emet, the famous Rabbi, who was a big genius. You know, sometimes you hear about certain tzaddikim, certain righteous people, and like you hear about their struggles that they had and how much they worked for it, etc. And that's one kind. There's another kind who just like came down from like the heavens and was like born like on a super duper level. That was the Sfat Emet, the Ger Rabbi. He had a lot of troubles in his life. He was orphaned at a young age and stuff like this. He was raised by his grandfather, the holy Chiddushei Harim, Rabbi of Ger. They're buried next to each other in Poland. And so the Sfat Emet, he says a very interesting thing. He says that there's a famous teaching in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of the Fathers, that perhaps many of us are familiar with. The teaching goes like this: Im ein ani li mili. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? Ukishani la'atzmi, and when I am only for myself, so then ma'ani, what am I? Ve'im lo achshav imatai, and if not now, when? So he says, so at first, by the way, this teaching for most of us on the simple surface level, it sounds like a statement of motivation. Im ein ani li mili. If I'm not for myself, so who will be for me? Of course, answers, listen, if it's like we're saying, hey, listen, if you don't do it, like nobody's going to do it for you. Get up, get off your behind and go out there and go get them. And on one level, that is what it means. But the Sfas Emes takes it at a deeper level. The Sfas Emes says that there's a principle from the Arizal, one of the great Kabbalists from 500 years ago, he explains the idea that each person is created here in this world with something to fix, with something to pick up, with something to rectify, with something to perfect, something that's unique to them, a unique tikkun, a unique fixing for them to do that nobody else is created in order to do that thing. And that's what it's saying. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? It's not a matter of just statement of motivation, it's a statement of essence. It's saying the reality is that this is the thing I was put here to do. If I don't do it, so who's going to do it for me, right? And then, of course, so that's stage one. Stage one is to go ahead and to recognize that there's something here that's unique for me to do, to go ahead and to get it together in order to go ahead and to live that out. But when I do it just for my own selfish reasons of gaining and even if it's just spiritual growth, I don't need to have egocentric spiritual growth. It's good for me to grow, and that's awesome and good, and I pray for that. But then also to dedicate whatever it is that my unique thing is to do here in this world, to also dedicate myself to the klal, to dedicate myself to the masses, to be able to go ahead and do my thing, but for the purpose of the greater good, for the purpose of the entire Jewish people and the entire world. And so this is something that we find that the Talmud teaches about as well. That the Talmud says that a person was created, that the original person, the original Adam, was created as an individual to teach us a lesson. And that is that for each one of us, each individual, to get up in the morning, take a look in the mirror, and be able to say, Bishvili nivra olam, that the world was created for me. Sounds pretty selfish, no? But what it's saying is a statement of value. That like it would be worthwhile we see that the world was created for the purpose of one person. That original Adam was able to say that. But the point is, it's a lesson for all of us. That we should all be able to look in the mirror and say that, and then not for the purpose of being a selfish jerk and saying like, you quote this Talmud as you go over and punch another guy in the face and take a slice of pizza and say, hey, listen, the Talmud says the world was created for me, so give me my pizza. No. What it's saying is to recognize that all of the situations and the conditions, etc., that I'm faced with, the different custom designed circumstances that have been put into my life, the parents that I had, the situations that I was put in, the ups and the downs, and all of that is a setup job. It's all setting the stage for then me in my situation. What am I going to do under these circumstances? Now, again, it doesn't mean punch the other guy in the face and takes his pizza, right? It means the opposite. You could also, by the way, take a look and say, hold on a second. It's worthwhile that the whole world be created for that guy. Maybe I should treat that person nice, like we also should look at it that way as well, I'm assuming, right? So this is the idea. And the Sfas Emes also explains that we know there's a teaching in Judaism that the angels are named, that each angel has a certain thing to do here in this world, a certain shlichut, a certain mission that it's sent on to fulfill that particular mission, and it's named on that mission. For example, famously, there's an angel called Raphael, the angel of healing, right? And it means the way God, one way of understanding angels is the way Hashem manifests himself in the world. We're not going to get into that now. But the point that I want to share with you is that the Sfas Emes says that just like angels are named based on their mission here in this world. So as Sfas Emes explains, so too are we, named on our mission here in this world. Now, sometimes it's not so simple to see. Those of us who know more about names can maybe try to figure out a little bit. But this is the story of what we are doing here. And so this is also perhaps one reason why the word for shame in Hebrew is related, is at the root of the word neshama, which means soul, because that soul that person has then gets its direction when it's given that name, and so this is so the question that a lot of times people have is, well, hold on a second, what is it the question that people have is, hold on a second, so how am I supposed to go ahead and and figure out, like, what is my unique thing to do here in this world? How am I supposed to figure that out? And so the Kabbalists explain, in particular the Vilna Gaon and others, explain that there's two ways to figure out our unique thing to do here in this world, okay? And I'm going to reveal that to you right now. Now, first, let's just be clear. There's an idea in general about building a relationship with Hashem. That goes for everybody. We all have that, okay? Now, what about our unique thing to do here is going to be different for everyone. One idea is, do you know that thing that is something that you're so, passionate about, that it's just, you're so much more passionate about this thing than pretty much everyone else around, than most, let's say like that, than most people, than the vast majority, than the masses, right? So for example, there are certain things in the world, certain good things, volunteering, let's say, for certain good causes, that everyone says, yeah, that's a good thing. We should have that in the world. Yeah, they should do that. Sometimes my kids are like, there's this pothole in the street. They should fix that. I'm like, who's they? So a lot of times we have that in life, right? Okay, because you're gonna ask me, all right, well, it's the city and they employ people. Okay, fine. But in general, there's like everyone like, oh, they should take care of handicapped kids. They should have good people volunteering in the hospitals to bring spread cheer. They should, there should be people who go to visit with old people who are lonely in their house. All sorts of different things that people say they should do it, but then you find something that you feel more than just they should do it, and you're like, hold on a second, I'm gonna do that. Right, like you become gung ho about a particular cause, or a particular something. There's a good chance that when everyone else is kind of like over here and like, yeah, this should be done, and you're like, yo, why isn't everyone doing this? And you're jumping in. There's a good chance that for you is something that's unique in terms of your particular role, your particular mission, what you have to uplift here in this world, right? And so that's number one way to know what is possibly your tikkun, your thing to fix and to rectify and elevate and perfect here in this world. And of course, you could have more than one throughout your life, and perhaps maybe even more than one at one time. That's one way. So I'm going to give you also a second way that they say. So we just said, we just basically answer number one was, that thing that you really, that good thing that you really want to just throw yourself into. That was answer number one. Answer number two is, that really bad thing that you really want to throw yourself into, that thing that like other people maybe have a desire towards that negative thing, but your desire towards that negative thing is way above proportion for what is standard and what is normal. So that thing could very well be your thing to go ahead and fix, your thing to go ahead and rectify within the world. But the way you do that, of course, first and foremost, is by rectifying it and working it out within yourself. Now, so the example I always like to give, and some of you who have been with me for a while have probably heard this example before, is a guy who I was in high school with. And so my guy I was in high school with, so he would go, this guy, he would not be able to walk out of a 7-Eleven without something hidden under his leather jacket, right? And I say leather to make the point that like the guy wasn't exactly broke. It wasn't like he needed it, you know what I mean? But this guy, he would not be able, he would have some kind of Doritos or something. Never mind the fact Doritos wasn't kosher in America at that time. Maybe it's now either, I don't know. But that's not the point. The point was that this guy would not, now everyone knows, right? Like it's pretty universal, like, you know, don't steal, whatever. This guy could not help himself. So nowadays, of course, with the apologists out there, they want to say, okay, look, we give him a name and then it's not his fault, right? So we call him, oh, he's a kleptomaniac. Oh, okay, then it's all right. He's sick. It's not his fault, right? Okay. But the point, of course, is that like, can you hear the idea that if this guy grows up a little bit, matures a little bit, and gets to a place where like he recognizes his flaw, and he says, you know what, I have to uproot the side of myself that is dishonest, that is stealing, for crying out loud. And I can get that out of me. And when that guy goes ahead, can you hear the idea that when that guy goes ahead and turns himself around to the point that he becomes someone in business who is honest to the T, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, being totally, totally honest. Can you hear the idea that when that guy turns it around, that guy is the ultimate shining light of the commandment, thou shalt not steal, right? He's the guy who can get up there and give the inspirational speech about all the different things that he would just do on a regular basis that were negative, and the stealing and the way he stole from this one and how he ruined relationships over stealing. And then he goes ahead and he turned himself around to be totally clean from this illness of stealing, right? That's the guy who afterwards, he's putting, whether you know it or not, he's putting the energy out there in the world that if that guy can be honest, I can be honest too. You hear that idea? And so I think my mom's on here. Mom, you don't know the guy, don't worry. Okay, so I think I saw her on here before. So anyway, story, so that is the story. And so this is the example for all of us in our lives to go ahead and to find those things that, number one, we're really passionate about for the positive, or number two, that thing that we keep falling down because of. And a lot of times God puts it in our life, sometimes that God does us a favor. I don't know if it's quotes or not, but he circles it. He puts a big fat red marker around it, right? Like imagine someone's with an anger issue. So like all of a sudden the guy, you know, because of his anger, his wife's leaving him, his kids hates his guts, he's getting fired from his job, all because of different things that happen to anger. So you hear the idea that God's putting a big fat circle around it, right? From this angle, his life is getting messed up because of anger. From that angle, from that angle, from that angle. You hear the idea God's putting a big fat circling with a big fat red marker saying, all right, you got to uproot this anger situation. Right. And so this is one of the ways that we figure out what is our mission, what is our purpose. And so I want to take this, we can take this a little bit further about how we go ahead and really bring out this personal potential that we have. But before that, if anyone has any questions, chime in now. Anyone want, what's it called? If we can open up people if they want to unmute themselves, or if you could get in on the chat, that would be fantabulous. Not everyone at once. Slow down, slow down. Question, Rivka, awesome. You can't unmute. Uh-oh. Vivian, what's going on? All right, so there you go. Write it down on a paper and put it up by the camera. There you go, Paris. I'm flipping through the screen here. Okay, fine. Can't see what's going on here. Here we go. Oh, there you go. Oh, you can't unmute. That's okay. If you could write it, that's cool. If your mida is avoidance, what is the solution? If your mida is avoidance, you mean if your problem is avoidance? What do you mean? Well, firstly, good for you. You did not avoid asking the question. So there's already a start. I'm not sure what you mean by avoidance. Sorry. So yes, sorry. The repair man is here. Okay. Wait, hold on. The repairman legit or repairman like you are the repairman because we're talking about doing your tikkun, which means repair. Okay, fine. There's deep things going on by you, Rivka. I don't know what's happening over there. All right. If your mida is avoidance, what is the solution? I mean, look, the solution obviously is if you're avoiding too much, which is, by the way, probably a deficiency on the mida, a unhealthy expression of the mida of hod, if you want to get Kabbalistic. So we have to learn how to be strengthened, to strengthen the concept of netzach. We have to learn where our boundaries are, how to go ahead and assert ourselves at the right time. We have spoken about this before, but to be fair, I was back around Sfirat before Shavuos, actually. So I do have actually, you know what, I'll send you, if you'd like, I'll send you a class I did on Hod. You might have been on it, actually. I don't know. But it has to do with the concept of netzach, really. That's what we need to strengthen. Oh, there you go. So did you listen to it? But really the netzach one, okay, good. The netzach one is what you really need to hear, which unfortunately wasn't recorded. And that's, at least we don't have it. And the idea there is to go ahead and to recognize what is the space of my choice, right? What is the space where I can express myself in a way of like recognize that feeling. If you want to talk somatically, if you recognize that feeling in the pit of your stomach at that time when you know you should be saying something, asserting yourself, saying your piece, but you're not doing that because you have a fear of what the reaction is going to be able to go ahead and muster up the strength in order to go ahead and do it. Or if you miss that opportunity because it takes work to really in the moment say the thing that you're feeling uncomfortable saying, so then afterwards be able to go back to that person and say like, listen, yeah, in the moment I wasn't thinking right, or I froze or whatever, I was uncomfortable, but like I just want to say to you blah blah blah, whatever that you have to say. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or another strategy would be to, instead of feeling like you have to come up with an answer at that moment and you're uncomfortable, so then you just kind of miss it, to be able to say, I'm not sure, I have to think about it, like pause the situation and say like, I'll get back to you basically. And then you can kind of like figure out what you want to say. And again, anytime you miss the opportunity, you can always go back afterwards and say that you're uncomfortable. And that might be 5 minutes later, it might be the next day. But I think those are some strategies and we could talk more about it if you'd like. Paris, let's see what you got. Hold on a second, Eliezer Cohen, that's an important one. I'm gonna get to in a second. Pause and silences are often avoided, but they're actually okay. Yes, hold on, wait, I can't, hold on a second. Having problems here with my phone. Give me a second here. If our struggle has changed, say we have struggled with one thing since childhood, but now we keep struggling with something else, what should we focus on? The more recent challenge or the one we've had for more of our life? Paris, I would say whatever you feel like you want to go ahead and be involved with right now. Be involved with something, but whichever one you feel like you want to be involved with, whatever resonates. What about loneliness? How can you strengthen yourself to be more shalem? Here we are. Can you guys see me? Are we connected still? I hope so. Having some weirdness with the call right now. Don't know what's happening. Okay, so hello. Okay, so so I wanted to address the loneliness one. So in terms of being more shalem, so yeah, there's a few things there. There is an aspect that we have to think about, which is when it comes to feelings of loneliness, which is recognizing. Hold on a second here. That changes things. Okay. Okay, so there is an idea that we want to feel whole on our own, especially if we're talking about someone in a situation where they're single and all of that, and hopefully looking. Hold on a second, it's not flipping for me. I know someone wants me to flip it over. Hold on. Don't know. Sorry. It's not flipping. So you guys can all see me straight right now? Someone give me a nod. Yeah? Okay. It's the setting on the phone. Sorry, I don't know how to do it. I don't want to mess with it. My phone is acting funky. I'm sorry. Holy cow. Did you do that to my phone? That's amazing, Vivian. If you did that, that's incredible. All right. So hold on a second, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Sorry. So what we're really looking for, the issue is typically an issue of codependency. Now, what does codependency really mean? Codependency means that I'm feeling like I need to be filled up and fulfilled through someone else, whether it be through their approval, through getting my validation through them. That's a big issue for a lot of people now, especially recognize that we are being programmed by media, by the comedies and the romantic movies and all that stuff, and even the action movies. There's always some chick who's looking up at the guy. We are being, in many ways, programmed to feel like we need to be filled up. Every single ad you've ever, I shouldn't say every single, that's an exaggeration. Many ads, especially the good ones, have basically been telling you that you are half empty on your own. Buy my product, it will fill you up and make you happy. And so that's been going into us, going into our heart since the day we were born for most of us. And the fixing of that is really when we understand that codependency is really a self-love deficiency. Self-love deficiency. So the question then becomes how to build, what made us self-love deficient, and how to go ahead, rectify that, and fill ourselves up with self-love. So first and foremost, the first thing we can't deal with, which is if there's issues of trauma from the past, especially from when we were a kid, that's going to be something that really put a hole in our heart, and then we're looking for something to fill it up. Hopefully it's something we've, and this is where a lot of addictions come from as well, because addictions really are just ways of filling up that space of deficiency, a hole within ourselves, right? So there's a difference between someone who enjoys alcohol, enjoys that feeling, whatever. That's one thing. That's not the same thing as someone who gets addicted to these things a lot. So number one is that there's an aspect of trauma here that might need to be worked out in many cases, in most cases. Number two, though, is what can I do to build up my relationship with myself? So there's all sorts of things. Number one, there's aspects of self-care, which is now a very popular thing and out there in the world that discusses these things, right? Self-care, meditation, different things having to do with just finding what I want to do and building a life for myself that I am happy and sustained and fulfilled on my own. So basically ask yourself, what do I want to do? Right? And really looking to make a life for myself that I'm happy. Like if we can imagine for a moment, what if there was no such thing as couplehood? It just wasn't a thing. It just didn't exist. So then what would I want to do? How would I want to live? Right? And finding things that fill us up and energize us. Let's just be clear. That does not mean just something that's like fun, right? And that's good. Fun is good. I'm not against fun. but we're not simply just talking about something that's fun. We're talking about something that satiates us emotionally. That's something that fills us up emotionally. Um, um, and by the way, also for the ladies on here, that does not mean chores, because women in particular like to somehow try to say, oh, well, I feel good after I fold the laundry. No, sorry. You see, some people are relating to what I'm saying here. So sorry, that doesn't work. No, something that you would do if all the chores were finished, right? So if you're a person who literally, you love folding laundry so much that if all the laundry is already folded, you would take that laundry out, you would throw it back down on the floor, make a mess of it, and then fold it up again, then fine, laundry applies to you. If you're not that person, laundry not an option, okay? All right. The more, when we go ahead and find those activities and look to make our life happy without looking for someone else to come into it and someone else to fulfill it and someone else to be looking at us in a particular way, in a certain way, that is the beginning, I think, right? And also there is an aspect of different, like whatever you want to call it, mindfulness or meditation. And really there's Hasidic traditions of this long before there was a word called mindfulness, about just getting in touch with mastering yourself, taking ownership of yourself, becoming a person who's conscious and aware and in touch with what they're doing at any particular moment when they're doing it, and staying in the moment and saying to myself, what does Hashem want me to do in this particular moment, and then going ahead and living it out. All of this has to do with becoming someone who is having a relationship with themselves, a conscious, proactive relationship with themselves. We so often grow up trying to pacify our feelings of boredom, pacify our feelings of wherever we're doing, like, let me click on the next thing, let me click the next video, let me watch the next movie or see the next sports show, whatever it is. And all of this means that we are relying on external stimulation in order to occupy our time and pacify my feeling of uneasiness in the fact that I am here alone. But what if I went ahead and said, okay, let me build a life, whether that be an internal life that we're describing now, or also just externally what I'm doing that I enjoy in a proactive and conscious way. I believe that is the beginning. I hope that's helpful. And what else did we have here? I think that was it for now. Hold on, it's less about self-love. Sorry, I read something private. Please turn phone sideways. All right, got that down, thank God. And pause. Okay, fine. Okay. All right. So getting back, if I can just for a few more minutes speak about this idea of bringing out oneself. So how a way upon which we can all grow, I'll give you some general examples now, is just like when we're talking about bringing out our potential, we're talking about going down this road of self-actualization, of I think there's a simple pattern we can take, in addition to what we just mentioned, because what we just mentioned also is very important, which has to do with filling ourselves up. But then assuming we are filled up and we're talking about going ahead and doing something externally, the next question is to prioritize and to categorize. Now, let's start with prioritize. Prioritize means I want to figure out what is my life about? What is the mission statement of my life, right? So let me give an example of what I mean. Once upon a time, I was at a convention for somewhere between 200 and 300 high school students, Jewish high school students that were from a non-observant background. And I was teaching on this program. It was like a 5-day retreat, and there was a certain rabbi there who was a big rabbi in a famous yeshiva in America called Ner Yisrael. And he was given, someone asked him a question. Basically, he was like, okay, the question was basically, what makes, I don't think the word was orthodox or observant or whatever. How do you categorize that? How do you define that? What makes an Orthodox Jew, basically, was what this guy was asking, this kid was asking, this rabbi. And the rabbi said a very interesting answer, right? He said that, look, imagine you have a box, and the box was your life. And so what do most people do? Most people are like, all right, so let me put in a whole bunch of stuff into my life, right? So let me put, I want to, listen, Judaism is important to me. I'm going to throw in some Judaism, some Torah, some prayers. And then also, listen, I like sports. Let me put in some sports. Let me put in some entertainment. Let me put in some money, making money, job, whatever. And then, okay, that's that's it. That's your life, right? So he said, this is a non-Jewish approach. That got my attention. He said, the Jewish approach, or the Orthodox approach, is that box that is your life, that's Judaism, that's Torah. Now, what goes into it, you deter, before you put something in life into the box, you first say, hold on, does this fit in the box of Judaism? Does this fit in the box of Torah? Does this fit in the box of lifestyle? So yes, X amount of sports fits in. X amount of sleep fits in. X amount of all sorts of different activities fit in. But to what extent? And what exact aspects of that activity? Perhaps, yes, entertainment, but what entertainment? And for how long? Right? And so he said that that's the path. And so a similar situation here is, and you see, by the way, you see this in the sources of Judaism as well. It says in the Pirkei Avot, "Asay Toratcha keva umalacha malachtecha arai." Make Torah the permanent thing for yourself, and make your work, your business, temporary. What does that mean? That you, right? Or also we have another one, kovea itim laTorah, set times for Torah. Meaning to say that the Torah should be the principal thing, right? Whatever it is your life is about should be something that is a priority. That's a principle that, in many sources also talk about doing it first. There's an idea in Judaism that you pray before you eat. Okay, grab yourself a cup of water, a cup of coffee beforehand, right? But you pray before you eat, that the spirituality comes before the physicality. Okay, if a person's feeling really weak or whatever, okay, good, take a few cookies, take what you need. But the point is that your spirituality comes before your physicality. Why? Because it's setting yourself up to live a life where what's important is prioritized. And then the other things also need to get done too. And even the things that are maybe not the priority, but I need them in my life because I want to enjoy, there's certain things I want to enjoy, and whatever, if it's kosher, great. All right, no problem. But let's make the priority, right? And let's make the main thing the main, and the I don't know what the sub is, the subcategory, right? And that's the idea. When the priority is clear, then I take in things into my life. As things come into my life, I categorize it. Is this something that's priority? Is this something that goes into the box, but it's not a priority, but it still goes into the box? Or is this something that does not fit in the box because it stands at odds with who and what I want to be, with what I claim when I was sitting in that class, and I wasn't being bothered by everything else in the world, and I wasn't being tempted by everything in this world, but I was zoned in on this class and I knew what I wanted to be. Does it fit in with that? Or is it just because I turned off the class, now I'm being pulled into other different directions? Okay, so let me take a hold of myself, put myself back in that zone of that class, and put that thing on the side and leave it out. And by the way, when you go ahead and you're victorious in that moment, a lot of times it dissipates. And for the things that don't, beseder, each moment is its own, hopefully, victory. And if there are times when we mess up, there are times when we fall, beseder, okay. At least even if we're like, a lot of times people think that like, okay, let's say there's something I'm trying to change, right? And so then and I'm able to hold off on that negative thing for X amount of time, but then I mess up. So people think like, I lost. Like, people think my record is 0-1. But really, the Arizal says that's not true. For every moment that previously you would have gone ahead and done the negative thing, for every moment you held out, that's victory. So don't count it. If you held out, you would have done the thing right in the moment, but this time you managed to, you held off, and then whatever, you messed up with it, whatever, a few hours later. So hello, those are moments of victory up into that. So it's not 0-1. Maybe you're 3-1. Maybe you're 10-1. Right? So we have to look at it and recognize those moments, right? Okay. And so we have to be, the idea is we have to be very clear. What is the ends and what is the means, right? And so anyway, this is and this is the idea. The more to be able to go ahead and clarify and really just like assess, number one, what's really important. What is my priority? What's my life is about? What do I believe to be true? What am I really trying to live here in this world? And attach myself to those ends, and then calculate and go after that, after the means, in order to go ahead and to get it, right? And it's one is involved in the means to be able to be conscious of the priorities, conscious of the ends, through being involved with them a little bit directly every day, right? To make sure we're involved with the ends to a certain extent every day. And then also there's means, right? So like, good example, let's say I'm trying to do something spiritual, but like, okay, I also got to eat, I also got to make money, right? So, okay, so I could be involved with the ends, but then also be involved with the means, even if sometimes I have to be involved with the means the majority of the day. But at least to have a little bit of the ends every single day, right? Especially if you're talking about Shabbat, that's every single week, right? But the point is to have a little bit of being attached to the ends directly every single day, so that we, that's the idea of praying 3 times a day, or some people praying once a day, whatever it is, but praying every day, learning a little bit of Torah, a little bit in the day, a little bit in the night, and yeah, to the extent we go ahead and we live up this life that's not only purpose driven from a Jewish place in general, but also specifically, what is my unique thing to do here in this world? If we focus on that and are involved with it a little bit every day, God willing, we'll hopefully live it out. Questions, thoughts, ideas before we call it here tonight, my friends? Today, tonight, wherever you are. Questions, thoughts, ideas, anyone? Very welcome. Thank you for being here, Reb Shmuley. Anybody else? Very nice. Tov, very good. Thank you so much for being here. Great to see you guys. Yeah, continue to stay in touch and keep on keeping on. And for those of you who are not here in the Holy Land, join us quickly. L'chaim, l'chaim.